Hello and welcome to the It's Giving Mystical podcast. This is your podcast for the week ahead, your channeled message and tarot card for the week ahead, the week of November 29th, day after Thanksgiving, a week headed into December. And for those of you who've been with me for a long time, like you know what I'm doing, you know what I'm here to do. But for those of you who are new or just kind of finding this world for the first time, yes, this card pull is about tarot. Like, yes, this is a podcast about tarot as a tool for mysticism, a tool for direct revelation. So while you may discover on this podcast some information about what the week ahead is going to hold, what I really hope you find here is a portal into better access to yourself, better access to the song your soul is trying to sing, the work you're here to do. My work in all aspects, so in Women's Circle and Moon Circle, with private clients, in the Tarot Mystery School, with this podcast, with all the other things that I get myself into. My goal is to help you unlock the power and the potential of the mystery schools. And the mystery schools are the kind of ribbons, the veins of arcane knowledge that have existed for centuries and centuries. They exist in a lot of the mystical traditions in the major faiths. They exist in kind of smaller modalities of mysticism. But the idea is the same. The idea is that there is nothing that separates you from source, that you are source, that you are love, that you are God, whatever you want to call it, incarnate, experiencing itself. And I believe that our work here is to get closer to that, is to become more aligned with the truth of that, is to become more aligned with our mission, our medicine, as I would call it, which means the specific thing that you can do here that no one else can do. Like, I really believe you come here with a mission, you come here with a song, and that's not to accomplish something per se, it's more to exist as your fullness. So in this podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about the energetics of the environment we're in, astrologically, energetically, spiritually, collectively, individually. And then we're going to talk about the card that I pull for this week with that in mind. And the question I always ask is, what will serve the collective? Like, what will serve the people who hear this? Let me speak something that will serve them, that will help empower them, ground them, awaken potential in them, remind them of the potential that already exists in them so that they can move out into the world as a force for good. And I know that sounds like kind of like Superman-ish, but I mean it. Like, there's something about your grounded living, your sense of integrity, your sense of alignment with who you are and what you're here to do that has profound impact on the world. It has profound impact in your community, in your family, in your systems, at your work. And I really believe my work is to sit with you and remind you of what you've come here to do, and to pull away all of the projections and all of the shadows and all of the confusion and all of the programming and all of the trauma that exists between you and you, that exists between you as you move today and you as you exist as a sense of pure potential in the world. So yes, this is a podcast about tarot, but tarot as a mystery school, tarot as a gateway. And I'll talk about the energy and I'll pull a card and I sit with that card and I feel the message that wants to come through, and I have intention and prayer around protecting you in that, protecting the listener in that, protecting actually even the sacred quality of the message itself. And then I talk through what comes through. And I hope it serves you. And I just invite you, if you're not sure, to come with me on this journey, this 10-minute, 15-minute journey. And just like, you don't have to do anything with the words. You don't have to do anything with this message. I offer it as a gift, and I offer it as like a kind of a contemplation or a meditative exercise of just sitting with it, letting it wash over you. Maybe something will stay with you, maybe not. And, go in peace if this doesn't work for you. Like, I wish everyone to find the teachers and the guides and the companions that they need on their own journey. And if I'm that for you, amazing. And if I'm not that for you, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm at peace with that. I offer this as a gift, and I hope you'll sit with it for this next 10, 15 minutes, see what comes through, see if you get something from it. And if you do, there, I hope it's yours. I hope it serves. And if not, just know that this comes with love, but it also comes with the gift of potential, the gift of opening your eyes a little wider to yourself and to the gift that you are to the world. So I hope that kind of gives some context. This is a little bit of a journey we go on. Talk about the energy, talk about the card, talk about the teachings, the practices, the energy that wants to kind of travel with us as we investigate the card. And I hope it serves us. I hope it helps us all live more satisfied, more fulfilled, more like beautiful lives. That's what I hope for. So, with all that said, thank you for bearing with me if you already know that and you already heard me kind of ramble on about that. Um, the energy that we're in right now is this last dip in November, this last time around sun and justice. So, just noticing this traveling through the span of this month, when you started November, what was up for you, kind of where you were. If you think back to those early days, what were you preoccupied with? What were you interested in? What were you thinking about? And then notice how we've traveled, over this time through this kind of portal of liberation and joy, liberating of joy and rebalancing of light. And here we are at the end of the month, and just notice what's different for you. Notice what's settled in you, notice what's rebalanced in you, just kind of naturally, without maybe even any effort on your part. Like, what has kind of found its new sense of normal, its new sense of balance, and how does that feel for you? Where have you been able to access more joy and more light? And what is that like for you? The energy of the lovers that we just traveled through, it really, I said this a couple times, but like the lovers is a relational card. The lovers is a card of, me as I exist as a unit, you as you exist in a unit, and where we meet at the boundary line. What's that experience of the boundary like? Where do we kind of open to each other and where do we close to each other? Where does that feel like a natural movement? And where is that movement kind of regulated by the stories we're telling? And where is that kind of line gotten messier, that connection gotten maybe habitual or unconscious? And where do we want to bring kind of, again, light rebalancing to that boundary line with ourselves in relationship? But then really what really came through last week was, no, actually with yourself. What are the parts that make up your cosmology, and how clear, how well, how loving are you being in that relationship? So I wonder if that was your experience, if you had any sense of noticing the way you're speaking to yourself, noticing the way you're measuring or judging yourself, and maybe softening that, maybe becoming a little more benevolent in your own holding of your heart, holding of your truth, holding of your desire. We're going to enter December. December will always be the hangman energy. It will always be the number 12. And this year it will be the card of judgment. So, judgment. It's a card. It's a card. It's an energy. It's a truth. There are things that happen to us that open our eyes and we don't see the world the same way again. We've all had an experience of life where you can think of a moment where things were one way, something happened, an event, a conversation, a realization, and just some awakening in whatever way that came to you. It probably has happened to you several times. And then when you look back, it's like you can really delineate, this was the way I was before, and this is the way I am after. For me, my mother, losing my mother, it was like 3 years ago already, and it's still so tender for me. And I really can think about, I was so lost that first year she was gone. I was so like I'm sorry, I'm emotional about it still. So deep in the grief of that I didn't even realize it was an awakening. Like that was a moment of judgment for me, right? And that took me a year to even like metabolize that she was gone. I still try to call her. I still think about her as if she's here, but there's a way in which it took my body a year to even like recognize that she was no longer here. And then in my life, I really can think about like that date, 12/1/21, is like hammered into my soul. And there's the moment, like there's who I was before and there's who I am after. And as much as it brings tenderness and grief, like I'm not sorry for it because I still feel her so close. And so much of that is because she meant so much to me. My love for her is so vast. So even as I feel the grief, isn't even as it's obviously right here for me, it's also this really interesting moment where I can look at my life and say, like, there really was before I lost her and after I lost her. And there's beauty on both sides of it, and there's tenderness on both sides of it. But it was a judgment day for me. It was a moment for me. That's the energy that's with us in this 8 year and this 12th month. And so, what that says to me, and the hangman is always a moment of reversal. So, the hangman is not the hangman, meaning like he's hung in the traditional tarot, he's hanging by his feet. Bat is a classic example of hangman. It's someone whose perspective is upside down. And so, in December, you notice that, right? The rhythm of life changes no matter what hemisphere, and you're in around the holidays, around this time of kind of celebration and completion. There's this um, like shift that happens in the world where things do take on like a different filter, kind of covers the world, some in painful ways, some in really beautiful ways. But the 12th month always brings us this energy of pause, like just pause and look again and just take stock of what you feel, take stock of what's true for you, and then take stock of how that may be in harmony or in conflict with the messaging you're getting from the outside. And in the 12th month, it's like, no, come back to what you see, because what you see is true. Even if you can't quite make sense of it, even if you can't quite explain it, there's something about trusting your perspective in December that's always really important. And then you add this overlay of the 8 year, bringing us to the judgment card. And there's something about this December that takes on this quality of before and after. And I don't mean to scare anyone with that. There's just a sense of a turning of the wheel, like a light going on. And it's like, oh my God, I forget that there was a world before that light turned on. That's the best way to talk about judgment energy. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is, especially coming out of the sun month, it is a moment of illumination. It literally is like you've lived in a dark room and the lights go on. You're like, oh, this is the room I've been in the whole time. That's a little bit the energy of the judgment card. So we're about to enter what feels like this interesting energetic of a slowing down and the lights going on at the same time. So I don't know what that's going to look like for you or for us collectively. But what I would say, if that's the energy that I know is coming for us, coming into the atmosphere, I'm going to, and I kind of say this a lot, but I'm going to move more intentionally. I'm going to move a little more slowly. I'm going to have it. So when the tower card comes in, that's what I'm kind of feeling with this. When the tower card comes in, there's usually a big shakeup. And one of the things my mom used to always say is when you're in a tower energy, I want you to move more slowly. You're more prone to accidents or tripping or falling or literally car accidents or just like mess. Like there's just a little more energy trying to run its way through the wire than you're used to. And so take your time with that. Somehow I feel that in this energetics of December of like the lights go on and it's like, it's almost like, um, almost when you get blinded by a light, like it's like it should sound really good. The lights go on. Okay, I can see clearly, but there's a little bit of like the contrast between the dark and the light that is disorienting. And so I just going to offer you the energy of December. Meditation, contemplation, slowing down is always good in the hangman energy, is always good in December. Gratitude, all of that comes into to kind of serve us and like nurture our root system in that time. But there's something about this judgment card that just is striking me as a little bit disorienting, not quite shocking, but disorienting. So I offer you that knowledge so that you can maybe slow down a little bit in December. The energy that I pulled for us this week, the card I pulled for us this week is the King of Swords. Can you see that? I know sometimes this camera does this fun thing where it blurs out things around me. So the King of Swords is mastery around the mental plane, around your sense of thought, communication, analysis, anything that has to do with your mental energy, the air energy as it makes you up. So the way that your mind works, the way that you define ideas. So this is like a little bit philosophical and wonky, but the reason that swords have to do with language is because language is a discriminatory act. When we choose to put a word on something, that's a representation, right? So it's like when I say tree, I'm not actually showing you a tree, right? I'm giving you this like mental image of tree that travels from my mind, comes out to sit between us, and then travels hopefully over to you. And there we think it's true, but it's really just a symbol system, right? It's really just this kind of gesture towards communication, gesture towards understanding. And the swords come in because they're literally like slicing pieces out of the air to try to make a chain of connection between you and I. The King of Swords is an interesting card because like the Queen of Swords is black and white thinking. Like it's like there's a right and there's a wrong, and there's this fierceness and a little bit of a coldness to her. The king has the responsibility of the whole realm, and something about him, because, and again, it's not like it's like her to him is better, but in tarot, the progression goes page, knight, queen, king. And so when you've taken that energy and really like held the energy of like, this is right, this is wrong, I see clearly, and then it moves into the king energy, there's a sense of, even though I see clearly, even though I have the ability to recognize right from wrong, because I'm also human, because I also have a compassionate heart, because I'm not just air energy, I have to hold this sense of right or wrong with a kind of reality check or a kind of softness around it. So the sense becomes, yes, there's a right and a wrong, and there's also a context, right? You think you fell out of a coconut tree? Like the Queen of Swords kind of like fell out of a coconut tree. She's like, this yes, this no. The King of Swords is like, I didn't fall out of a coconut tree. I exist in the context of all that was and all that is. And so the example would be if the king is presiding over like a courtroom and someone comes to them, it's that, isn't there like an ethics, uh classic ethics, like thought study or something about, is it wrong if the guy steals medicine for his children, for his sick child? Like, where does truth exist in that? Where does right and wrong exist in that? That's the King of Swords. Like, he brings this sense of, yes, there's right, yes, there's wrong, but there's also context. And what's really interesting is I pulled that card with the underlying, which sometimes I notice and sometimes I don't, but that's the bottom card of the deck, was the Wheel of Fortune. And I just do have this sense that things are changing, that there is this illumination coming, or this like, I don't know how to explain it. Like the lighting's changing. I'm just going to say it as simply as that. The lighting is changing. And as I'm recording this, the clouds are going over the sun, and the lighting actually keeps changing in this room. And it's something like that. So the lighting's changing, and the Wheel of Fortune is at the bottom of the deck, which means there's some thing in the ground. There's some like workings of fate or workings of co-creation or workings of spirit that are in process. And the King of Swords is just going to remind you not to judge so quickly, not to judge so fiercely, not to be so finite in your perception. So it's always important to bring curiosity to yourself, to life, to relationships, to behavior. And one of the most generous ways to be with anyone, to understand anything, is to move away from this constriction of judging other people's behavior, and leaning back and widening into this sense of how curious they would behave that way. So again, I said this last week and it keeps coming up, like, we are not rational creatures. Like we think we are. We think we're thinking clearly. And so I'm thinking clearly about this. And so that's what is. This is what is. And in truth, we're emotional, like feeling, energetic creatures who oftentimes want to justify what we're doing or how we're behaving or what we're choosing or what we're continuing, what we're colluding in, by making sense of it rationally, by like dropping into the conscious mind as a part of the narrative, as part of the story, as some representation of truth. And that's a little bit of like a magic trick, right? Because you go to someone, you're like, let's talk about this rationally. If it's something that matters to you, you're often not moving from a place of rationality. So I just want you to think about this week, when you're with other people, when you're in dynamic and you find this movement to judge them, to notice that maybe there's something about you that could lean back a little bit and get a little more curious about what is the context of their reality? What is the context of their behavior? And never, ever, ever, ever am I saying these things to excuse bad behavior. Never, ever, ever, ever am I saying these things so that you are like, well, they must have a reason for how they're behaving, so I'll let them treat me like shit. Like, that's not what we're doing with this. We're not doing this in sense of like, excuse them, understand them, be more compassionate, be more loving. If you just love harder, they'll get better. That's codependent bullshit, and that's not what we're talking about. But we are talking about opening our hearts. We're talking about sitting in our fullness. And if we're constricted around judging someone else or like needing them to be different, then we're not in our fullness. We're not in our openness. So you get curious about their behavior so that you can see more clearly. And then you can decide, I'm curious about that. I'm curious about what else might be possible here. And at the same time, I know what's safe behavior for me. I know what's a safe place for me. I know it's a safe relationship for me. And I know what's not. So don't confuse the necessity of setting boundaries with the curiosity in the headspace, the mental plane, the mental body about what else might be. Anytime we think we know, it's kind of an opportunity to, yeah, I know, but I also don't know. Like there might be things I know, but there's so much I don't know. And I just personally am interested in understanding. I'm interested in not getting tight with anyone. I'm interested in getting wider with my experience of the world and wider with my experience of other people. And again, so grounded, so safe in my own system comes back to that. What's the cosmology of your own heart and relating and mental plane and emotional body? And how are all your parts integrating and dealing with each other? And you come to a place of fullness in that. And then there's just more bandwidth for curiosity because what other people do has so little to do with me. That's just true, right? But we get so, talk about seduced. We get so seduced by the idea that their behavior has something to do with us. And most people are just trying to get through the day. It's kind of like reductive, but also very true. So the King of Swords says to me, you might have something very important to say. King of Swords speaks beautifully. The King of Swords communicates beautifully. There's a precision and a power and a persuasive quality to his language that's masterful and would be considered art and is deeply moving and deeply inspiring and really kind of lights up pathways that maybe you didn't see before. So that's a possibility for yourself. There's a possibility that someone might come into your life who holds this energy, who kind of illuminates things for you, and that's beautiful as well. And so the court cards, so the pages, the knights, the queens, the kings, they can represent aspects of ourselves as much as they can represent other people. So the King of Swords might show up as another person in your life, and the King of Swords might be the aspect of you that needs to just get curious before you get judgy. So just noticing where I want to kind of clamp down and say like, I know what they're doing versus that's an interesting thing. I wonder what would bring someone to a place where that was the decision they'd make or that was the movement they would want to make. And then, yes, discrimination, deciding whether I want to participate in that. So I can understand someone. That doesn't mean I'm condoning bad behavior, right? I can understand someone. That doesn't mean that I'm inviting them into my space. That's not the same thing. The one does not equal the other. There's steps along the path there. And the King of Swords, the last thing I'll say is your connection to the divine, your connection to inspiration is highlighted in a King of Swords. So one of the things the King of Swords can do is he can channel clearly. He can take what is in the ethers and bring it into form in language and bring it into form as clear thought. And so the potential to get clear about something or see something clearly or get the right message when you need it is highlighted in the week ahead. King of Swords is interesting energy. He gets a rap as being kind of cold. And the challenge with him can be, again, that idea of judgment. That's really where the challenge comes in, like needing something to make sense. And so forcing sense where maybe it doesn't quite belong, or forcing right and wrong in a place that it doesn't really belong, or really wanting things to be black and white when they never are. Like everything is a gray area, everything is shades of gray. no one is wholly wrong and no one is wholly right, right? No situation is one dimensional. There's like as many ways around it as you can move. So, King of Swords, great week for meditation, great week for journaling, great week for recording and listening, great week for writing like poetry or trying to connect with spirit or trying to channel from the ethers into your own life, into your own sense of knowing. And a great week to notice where you get tight, notice where you need things to be right and wrong, and getting a little more open, a little more relaxed, a little more curious with those spaces. And just to say the last thing I said already, but just to say it again, the Wheel of Fortune indicates things are changing. So, like, you might look at it and be like, well, that's obviously wrong. Give it a minute. Like, give it a minute and watch what happens. I think about what just happened with some of like Matt Gaetz, how like he appointed him attorney general and the whole world was like, are you kidding me? And then if you just like sat with it, it's like, that was never going to happen. But like, we could panic or we could just say, there's something off about that, and just kind of watch it like unravel, like watch the truth come where the truth needed to come. So, yeah, King of Swords. Sit with him this week, maybe on your altar. Notice the people in your life that offer this to you, that are able to. There's a woman, a good friend of mine who I'm hoping to do some work with, and we were talking this week, and I was thinking like something I love about her is her intelligence, but her intelligence and her ability to be strong on her own, so that when her and I are talking about kind of complicated things or trying to push ourselves towards, greater excellence, there's this sense of, I trust her to stand on her own 2 feet. I like to speak to me about what I need to see, and I trust her to be able to say what's true to her. I really value that in a friendship. So the King of Swords is like, can you say what's true with each other, and can you hold each other's truth with more generosity? Can you hold each other's truth with, I might not agree, but I love you and I trust you, and I trust the truth that you are trying to hold in your field. I trust the information you're trying to metabolize in your field, and I'm willing to stay here with you while we let it kind of while we let ourselves be in it, and we let ourselves be in it together. It's kind of a beautiful sense of collaboration in that. All right, King of Swords, be well, be clear, be honest this week. And if something doesn't sit right with you, just give it a minute, stay with it a minute, wait for the wheel to turn, wait for the lights to go on, and then decide how you want to behave and how you want to integrate or not integrate that thing into your system once you've kind of relaxed into what else might be possible there. Nothing's a straight line. Nothing's black and white. Like, it's all kind of like a switchback, and we're just all navigating it the best we can. All right, so much love. Check you later, and I don't have anything to tell you really. If you like this, if it's helpful, please like it. Tell me you love me. I want to tell you I love you, and interact with this. It's super helpful for us and for the world and for all the algorithms of time and space. And otherwise, just know that I hope you gained something helpful from this. I hope it served you in some way. And I send you so much love, and I send you so much clarity in the week ahead. Okay,